Guten Tag, APUSH. We have a new video today. It's the Bee's Knees by the Big Cheese himself, Mr. Linegar. Let's make history today as we start a new unit and we jaw over Unit 4, Day 1. But first, let's do our daily punishment. Never discuss infinity with a mathematician. They can go on about it forever. Alright, your key terms for today. William Henry Harrison, Old Tipper Canoe. John Tyler, Manifest Destiny, the Aroostook War, the Webster-Ashburton Treaty, James Polk, the election of 1844, 5440 or fight, the Oregon Purchase Treaty, the Mexican-American War, the Caroline, the Creole, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, Winfield Scott, Zachary Taylor, Stephen Kearny, John C. Fremont, the Spot Resolution, the Walker Tariff, and the Wilmot Proviso. We're going to go over the presidency and problems under John Tyler, the major goals of James K. Polk's presidency, and foreign policy under Polk, the impact of the Mexican-American War. So the Manifest Destiny was a phrase coined by John O'Sullivan in a newspaper. This is the idea that the U.S. should reach from the Atlantic to the Pacific. It's the idea that America has a God-given right to expand westward. Obviously, it ignores people that were originally living in the land. You see in this political, this painting right here, the Grim Reaper is following as they go. It's kind of scary. This isn't how Americans want to imagine Manifest Destiny. They want to imagine it like this right here. I mean, you still see pretty much a lot of the similar things. But you see a, little angel white woman hovering above them, blessing them as they steal the land and butcher the animals. Bad times. So William Henry Harrison, as we mentioned before, is only going to serve 4 weeks. He's the shortest serving president. He dies of pneumonia. John Tyler was his vice president. They're both Whigs. But remember, what united the Whig Party was their hatred of Andrew Jackson. And even though John Tyler was a Whig, he believed in states' rights. So he's going to go against his own party because they want a lot of nationalistic stuff. For example, the Whig Party is going to pass in Congress, they're going to pass a new bank, the third bus, and he's going to veto it. So he vetoes legislation from his own party. All of John Tyler's cabinet will resign except for Daniel Webster, and basically John Tyler's kicked out of the Whig Party. So under John Tyler, one of his greatest issues will be the United States' relationship with Great Britain. That's the whole reason why Daniel Webster will remain Secretary of State. Let's talk about some of the problems they were having with each other, kiddos. There's going to be the Aroostook War. There's this border of land that was claimed by both Maine and Canada. This is going to lead to people from Maine and people from Canada fighting each other. And there's actually going to be some deaths here. The Aroostook War. There's going to be a short-lived rebellion in Canada. This short-lived rebellion in Canada actually leads to some Americans thinking that maybe the Canadians will become independent, and they're going to start giving weapons to Canadian rebels, hoping that they'll break off from Britain. Obviously, it goes against international foreign policy and the rules of war to give weapons to rebels. So Britain will capture an American ship that was smuggling guns and they'll destroy the ship. This will cause problems. There was the USS Creole. The Creole was a slave ship. Britain had banned the slave trade, and there was going to be a revolt on the USS Creole. So the slaves take over the ship. They land in the Bahamas, which is part of Britain. They don't have the slave trade anymore. America still had the slave trade. Since the British don't have the slave trade anymore, they're going to free the slaves, which is going to outrage the Americans. You stole our property. Most of these things will be resolved in the Webster-Ashburton Treaty. In the Webster-Ashburton Treaty, the land in Maine will basically be split. America will get more. But Britain will get the land they wanted to build the road. Also, the Caroline incident will be settled also as well. And here's the Webster-Ashburton Treaty. Here's the land which they both got. America definitely did get more. Britain only got this land right here. So, as we remember, Texas was an independent nation. Great Britain likes Texas as an independent nation. They don't want America to be more too powerful. They also like how Texas is providing a lot of cotton to Great Britain. It weakens the United States. In the election of 1844, James K. Polk is going to run as a pro-expansionary Democrat. He's going to promise to, he wanted to make Texas a state. He wanted to get California. He wanted to have a lower tariff. The Whigs are going to nominate my boy Henry Clay again. This is the fourth time Henry Clay has ran. Poor Henry Clay. And Henry Clay was pretty ambivalent. He wasn't really sure about expansion or Texas. He was a slave owner, but a lot of the Whig parties were anti-slavery, and Clay did not like slavery that much as a slave owner. Super hypocritical. So Clay's going to be the Whig candidate versus James K. Polk in 1844. The Liberty Party, which is an anti-slavery party, is going to run also, and they're actually going to help cost Henry Clay the election. He'll lose some votes in some of the big states, and James K. Polk, the extreme states' right, slavery, manifest destiny boy, is going to become the new president. During the last days of his presidency, John Tyler is going to annex Texas. If you remember, in order to annex a foreign country, you need to have a treaty signed, and that needs 2/3 of the Senate. Tyler didn't have support for 2/3 of the Senate, so in order to get Texas, he just had the House and Senate meet in a joint resolution. Sometimes Congress, the House and Senate can meet together and they could pass a joint resolution. And they voted up and down, and they only needed 51% to get Texas. This was probably illegal. It was illegal. If it's a treaty, it needs to be in the Senate, not a joint resolution. But by this way, Tyler got the glory, and he got Texas to become a state in the last days of his presidency, which will cause problems with Mexico. Here's the election of 1844. It doesn't look as close for the Electoral College, but it actually was really close. Poor Henry Clay. Let's talk about Oregon. Great Britain, Spain, Russia, and America all had claims to Oregon. Spain and Russia are going to drop out. Great Britain had claims all the way back from the Hudson River Bay with Henry Hudson. America had claims from Lewis and Clark. So we both had pretty old claims going back from the early 1800s. In Britain's case, going back from the 1700s and 1600s. Many settlers are going to move to Oregon. The Oregon Trail is discovered there. It's a route that is used there for moving. There's also a pretty fun game called the Oregon Trail. This is going to, with a lot of Americans moving there, it is going to strengthen America's claim. Oregon will become an issue in 1844. James K. Polk is going to say, we want 54, 40, or fight. So Britain needs to give us 54 latitude, 40 longitude, or we will fight against them. He was just saying this. He's going to be willing to compromise, but this was just, to prove a point, to show that we're tough. By the time he meets with the British, America had already gone to war with Mexico. He didn't want to go to war with two countries, so Britain and America will compromise on the 49th parallel. This is called the Oregon Purchase Treaty. And America will get Oregon up to the 49th parallel. When we're talking about James K. Polk, he's only going to serve one term. He has 4 things he wants to do, and despite how you feel about him, he gets all those things done. He wants to lower tariffs. He lowers tariffs by 7% in the Walker tariff. He wants to create an independent treasury, which is not a national bank. He does that as well. He wants to get California. He's going to get that. And he wants to get part of Oregon, and he gets that. The Independent Treasury Act of 1846 is going to establish an independent treasury. It's going to establish deposits kind of ran by the government, which will be separate from private or state banks. So he's kind of going against the whole wildcat bank system to be able to hold on to governmental funds. So it's not a national bank, but it is a little bit more governmental control of the banking system. Not as good as what the Whigs wanted, though. Here's the Oregon Purchase Treaty right here. '49th parallel right here. This is what we wanted. We actually got all the way up to here. Let's talk about the Mexican-American War. There's going to be a dispute between Mexico and the United States over where the border of Texas is. Is it the Nueces River, which Mexico claimed, or the Rio Grande, which America claimed? Honestly, if you look at the historical records, Mexico was correct. But America's also trying to find an excuse to go to war with Mexico because they won't sell California to us. During the same time, James Polk offered $25 million for California. Mexico's going to reject that. Zachary Taylor is going to send soldiers across the Rio Grande, in between the land between the Rio Grande and the Nueces. This was area that Mexico claimed that they had. The Mexican soldiers will fire on the Americans. 16 Americans will die. Polk will say American blood has been shed on American soil, and this will be what we use as our excuse to go to war against Mexico. Abraham Lincoln was a first-term congressman. He was a Whig. He wanted to know the exact spot where the Americans died because he figured that the Americans died in Mexican land, which would have made the whole war unjust. So what old Lincoln did was he kept offering resolutions to know the exact spot where the Mexicans fired at the Americans. These are called the spot resolutions. And when I'm talking about the Nueces and the Rio Grande, here it is right here. Here's the Rio Grande River right here. Here's the Nueces River right here. So Mexico claimed that this land is only Texas. We claimed all this land is ours. Polk sent soldiers right here, really in order to get a reaction. So let's talk about the war. The Mexican-American War. America will do really well in this war militarily. One of our generals, Stephen W. Kearny, will capture Santa Fe. He'll capture the whole New Mexico area. John C. Fremont was a general. He's going to lead a rebellion in California. California will become an independent country for one day before it joins America, the Bear Flag Republic. Zachary Taylor is going to fight his way into southern Mexico. He's going to beat the Mexican army in the battles of Buena Vista and Palo Alto. He was known as Old Rough and Ready. His hat, he was known as Old Rough and Ready. Old Rough and Ready. Yeah, so my boy Taylor was known as Old Rough and Ready. People would say about him that his head is where his pants should be, his behind should be, and his behind is where his head should be. He would just always charge into everything. He was kind of fearless. Not the greatest tactician. Probably the best general in the Mexican-American War is General Winfield Scott. He's going to lead an amphibious invasion. America's going to send their army through the Gulf of Mexico in their ships. They're going to invade a town right close to Mexico. They're going to land. They're going to defeat the Mexicans at the Battle of Veracruz, and then they're going to capture Mexico City. Let me show you this real fast. So here's my boy Zachary Taylor. He wins the Battle of Buena Vista and Palo Alto, somewhere in this area also. Winfield Scott is going from here to here. He attacks Monterrey, and then he eventually goes to Veracruz and Mexico City. So there's like 4 American armies during this time. In the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, it looked like the treaty was going on for a while. The treaty negotiator was actually told to come back to America, but he's going to disobey the orders because he was really close to getting a treaty, and he's going to make the treaty with the Mexican government. Also, we didn't say this, but in the Mexican-American War, America is going to allow Santa Anna to come back to Mexico. He promised that if he did, he would sell California to us, but once he comes back to power, he just refuses to do anything, so we go to war against him again. So poor Santa Anna is 0 for 2 now. In the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, America is going to increase their land by about 1/3, which includes Texas. This is called the Mexican Secession. We're going to lessen our relationships with Latin America. They're going to see us as a colossus of the North, a bully that fights other countries. They'll see America as a bully, a country that's just picking on Mexico. Slavery will become an issue again after we get all this huge amount of land called the Mexican Secession in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. There's an issue now. Do we allow slavery or not in the land? So we're going to have another huge slavery debate. And once again, Henry Clay, right before he dies, will save the day. The reason why slavery becomes a big issue is after the Mexican-American War, the Wilmot Proviso was proposed. The Wilmot Proviso was a proposal in the Senate that would have said there would be no slavery in the land won from Mexico. This was blocked in the Senate, but it's still going to cause a lot of the Southerners to be upset. They're going to demand that slavery should exist anywhere in the land we won from Mexico. So this is going to lead us to our next big compromise and controversy about slavery. In the Mexican secession, America is going to spend, we beat the Mexican army, and then we give them $18 million. In return, they recognize Texas boundary as the Rio Grande, and they are going to give us the Mexican secession, which is this land right here. We get California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, part of New Mexico, a little bit of Colorado, a little bit of Wyoming. So we get a lot of land just from stealing it from the Mexicans. Bad times. All right, kiddos, that is all I have for you for today. Until next time, deuces, yeah.